Welcome to Creating Connection within Health and Wellness
with your host, Demi
and Kirsty,
where we connect and share our perspectives and experiences within the health and wellness industry.
Hey everyone, welcome back to episode 6. It's lovely to have you all back on the podcast with us. Today's topic is why nutrition is more than macros, part 2. So we recently released a topic called Why Nutrition is More Than Macros, part 1, where we talked about quality of your nutrients, why your nutritional value of your food really does matter and all the health benefits. And this episode, we're going to go into a little bit more detail on all of those micronutrients, your vitamins, your minerals, why they're important, where you can find them. And then we're going to cover off some fun facts at the end.
Yes, we're super excited to take you through this episode today. And as discussed in the previous episode, we were speaking about food quality. So we thought we'd come back to you with an episode about where you can actually get that optimal food quality from and going through all those sort of things too. But we thought we'd start with just a little summary. What is a micronutrient? So in terms of this, these are essential dietary elements that are required by us in varying quantities throughout our life to orchestrate a range of physiological functions to maintain our overall health. So this includes our physical health, our mental health, and our emotional health as well. So we thought we'd get started. We're going to take you through in terms of the different vitamins and minerals that you can obtain throughout the body and why they are essential. And we're also going to be going through the foods on where you can obtain them from. So we thought we'd get started in terms of, starting off with the B vitamin group. And we're going to be starting off going through in terms of what these benefits are. So B vitamins overall assist in metabolic processes such as our food metabolization. So in terms of being able to digest it and use it as fuel, in terms of new blood cell production as well, aids in healthy skin and brain cells. And there are many different B vitamins. So B1, B2, B3, B5, B6, B7, B9, and B12. And we have some awesome fun facts at the end around that as well. Now, I thought we'd get started around vitamin B1. So this is thiamine. So chatting about B1, the function of this is needed to release energy in food. So we actually require thiamine in our diet. So we can obtain this from foods such as whole grains, dried beans, peas, peanuts, and also animal protein. So in terms of this, it helps in, using the energy within our food to actually be able to use it throughout our day-to-day functions as well. And is there anything that you'd like to add to that, Demi?
So basically, that's a really, really good explanation of thiamine and why it's important in our diet. It does help us prevent a B vitamin deficiency as well when we are consuming enough thiamine. So super, super important. Like you mentioned, you need it to release energy in food. So if you're not essentially consuming thiamine, even if you are consuming the rest of your B vitamin profile, you may not necessarily be able to gain that nutrients from the food without thiamine. So it's a pretty important part of our metabolizing of food. And then we've got B2, which is riboflavin. I had to look at the pronunciation of that. I would have pronounced it completely different. Pronunciation of the vitamins and minerals is not my strong suit. But your vitamin B2 is needed to build and maintain healthy body tissues. So it's essentially involved in all of the cellular restructuring, rebuilding, and recovery and repair of cell body tissues. So that includes things like digestive lining, bone mineral tissue, ligaments, your brain cells, everything. And you can find this in whole grains, yellow and green vegetables, which is interesting. I'd love to sort of have a look at why it's specifically yellow and green vegetables. Maybe we should have used that for our fun fact. And you can also heavily find them in animal proteins as well.
Awesome.
Yes. Anything else?
No, just moving on to our next vitamin. So as you know, there's lots of them in that. There's nothing else to be added to that one in terms of that was an awesome summary in that. So, having those down and, you can sort of reflect and see if those sort of foods are within your diet now to obtain those minerals so far. Mm-hmm. Next one we've got is vitamin B6, which is pyridoxine. So same as Demi, you had to Google it a little bit to pronounce that one. I mean, honestly, I think could all change it to our own language. But pyridoxine helps the development of the nervous system. So it's involved in the production of blood, helps break down proteins and glucose to produce energy for the body. So very similar in terms of vitamin B1, where it does aid in the way that, we're releasing the energy in the food. But in terms of that, it helps break down the protein and the glucose to also produce energy for the body as well. So food sources that you can obtain vitamin B6 from things such as potatoes, chickpeas, yeast, nuts, bulgur, fish, rice, and also bananas as well. So in terms of that, looking to obtain some of those within your diet will give you the vitamin B6 mineral as well. Vitamin, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really, really cool stuff. I love that it's in so many different foods. So the next really key B vitamin that we're going to go through, we're not going to go through all of them, but we're going to jump over to B12, super important B vitamin. So it's called cobalamin. Good pronunciation, go me. Even though I've got it written in front of me, I still managed to mess that up. That's okay, you can forgive me. The function is obviously it promotes proper growth and development of the nervous system. Okay, so the food sources you can get this in is fortified cereals, nutritional yeast, algae, and also animal products. So again, B vitamins are very present in all of your animal products. So things like your dairy, your red meats, your shellfish, so your eggs as well, you're going to find a whole host of B vitamins in those. So as long as you're incorporating those into your diet regularly, you should be getting a wide profile of B vitamins. However, people that would normally present with sort of like B vitamin deficiencies is vegetarians, vegans specifically as well, and just people that don't necessarily eat a lot of protein, because you can find it's very high in protein. So that would be my recommendation. If you're feeling something like lethargic or like weakened immune system, these can all be like symptoms presenting vitamin B deficiency, and also things like skin irritations, bruising easily, all that sort of stuff can also be presented as a B vitamin deficiency. So I would look at then increasing some of these foods that we've just mentioned.
That's a really awesome point to note on those sort of things, because, a lot of the times when we do start to see disruptions within the body, it's like, a lot of people are quick to sort of go, and like change all the things, but, come back to the food quality. What kind of foods are you consuming? And, see if, it's not an overnight fix, but, with those modifications and stuff throughout your diet, you can look to observe and see if there are any changes as well in that fact. So that's a really awesome thing to add. Moving into our next vitamin, we've got vitamin C. So vitamin C helps form growth hormones. So growth hormones are essential in terms of, for example, like at night, the human growth hormone is released in our sleep cycle for us to be able to build and repair muscle tissues, ligaments, bones, all those sort of things. So vitamin C aids in that. It also aids in building strong gums, teeth, bones, and acts as like an antioxidant, but also aids as well in helping, I suppose, not alleviate, but helps, I suppose, manage cold and flu symptoms in that aspect too. It can kind of reduce that effect as well. So it can be something that's super helpful in that fact. In terms of food sources, where can you get this from? So citrus fruits. So for example, like your oranges, mandarins and whatnot as well. Cabbage. So you can have your white cabbages, your purple cabbages and whatnot too. Also berries. So your strawberries, blueberries, blackberries, all those sort of things. And also peppers. So like your capsicums, your chilies and all those sort of things as well. Is there anything else you'd like to add to that, Demi?
Yes. So kiwi fruits, I guess they sort of count as your citrus fruits, but kiwis definitely very high, and we're going to cover that a little bit later, because we're going to go through, forgot to mention at the beginning, but we'll go through a couple of questions I got asked on my Instagram stories about some foods. But vitamin C is definitely something that can help boost, or not boost, but it can help to support a healthy immune function. So I do remember when I've spoken on the podcast before about when I worked on cruise ships. It wasn't often that if I felt myself getting sick, I couldn't actually just go and access like some cold and flu tablets or some sort of like, medication to help me. So I actually just used to go and eat like 6 kiwi fruits and just get a super dose of vitamin C. And then that would usually help me sort of at least alleviate some of the sickness or illness that I was sort of experiencing, or it would completely like get rid of it altogether. So it would kind of prevent me from getting sick. So I was like, kiwi fruits are a superfood back then, when I thought that superfoods were actually a legit thing. But so yeah, kiwi fruits definitely very high in vitamin C. I would recommend eat them with the skin on too. Are you a skin on or off?
I'm a skin on girl. People hate
Yeah,
it.
yeah. I'm a eat it like an apple type thing.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's
totally.
why we connect so well. It's because we have those sort of things.
And then quick question, how do you eat your apple? Because I eat straight through the core and I eat the apple flesh as the last thing.
I personally don't eat apples.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh.
They make me sick in the belly. They make me sick in the belly. Fascinating. Hey, it's just something about it. It just makes me a bit off, but I eat everything else though. If it's apples, not me. But I'm sure if I was, I'll probably eat the whole thing because I'm like that with most of everything except for orange peel. No, you can't do that.
No, you can't do that. Lemon peel, not orange peel, not lime peel. But yeah, I do. I'm like, can't do this, can't do this, can't do this. I'm the same. Like I eat basically from one side of the apple through to the other because I don't like wasting, and especially I find apples such a good car snack for road trips and travel and stuff. And then I hate the fact that I might have to like have a core that I can't do anything with. And often if Aaron and I are on a road trip or something, I'll eat my apple and then he'll eat his apple around the core and then give me his core. And we're just with these two little stalks from our apples. Quick little tangent on apple consumption, but yeah, I'm sad we don't get to eat them.
I've tried, don't worry. Every now and then I might have one and then I'm like, oh yeah, it still doesn't sit well. Just hoping that things might change because they are delicious.
Yeah, they are. One day you're like, one day it might be different. So that leads us to the next one, which would be folic acid. So this helps build DNA and protein, helps maintain the intestinal tract, aids in bone growth, prevents nervous system birth defects as well. So if you're someone that's looking to fall pregnant or you are pregnant, then folic acid is definitely a micronutrient that you need to pay attention to. So food sources are dark green leafy vegetables, yeast, and wheat germ. For those people that might not know, Kirsty, would you like to explain maybe what wheat germ is? I feel like you might be a better person to explain that.
Well, in terms of wheat germ, what it is sort of like it's a wheat-based product, obviously, but it's a kernel, and it's responsible for helping, I suppose, the plant reproduce and spawn new wheat. So it's sort of like, I suppose, the start of it in a way.
Yeah.
I suppose in terms of where you can get that from, I mean, I know you can get it as like a supplement or like a health food in the health food aisle in terms of like at, Coles and Woolies and stuff like that. But I personally never used it. So I'll find out some little research and see what that tastes like as well. I'm not sure what you can do, versatile thing. So yeah.
We'll have to sort of do some tests on it. But yeah, that makes sense the way you explain it, because it says like it's called wheat germ. So you would think that the germ is like the very early stages of a wheat product. Yeah. So cool. Fun facts. Awesome. Thank you for explaining that.
Awesome. Well, our next vitamin we'll be discussing is vitamin A, so retinol. So the function for vitamin A aids in good vision, healthy skin, and healthy hair. So the food sources that you can get this from is from animal products. So for example, like your animal proteins or even just even your dairy products and whatnot as well. But then also your body can actually make vitamin A from vegetables that have carotene. So like your carrots, your sweet potatoes, and other red orange vegetables, because they obtain that within their skin and their structure of what it is. So pretty much anything that's sort of red, orangey sort of stuff, like even your capsicums and things like that, those sort of things can aid in providing vitamin A to the body. Strawberries as well, all those sort of things that have that sort of red, orangey sort of skin as well.
Yeah, cool. That's a really cool sort of like fun fact, is just to know that obviously with your sort of reddy orangey vegetables, they are going to be a source of keratin. It's kind of like easy to sort of resource and remember when you're in the shopping center looking for the type of foods or fruits and veg you might pop into your trolley. The other thing is you're going to find a lot of vitamin A or like retinol and retinol is in your skin products. So that's definitely a good mineral for your skin. So next one, another one, awesome for you, really big one. And I have pretty much all of my clients on vitamin D supplementation. So vitamin D function promotes strong teeth and bones, helps strengthen muscles, fight infections, and improves your mood. So food sources that you can get your vitamin D from is mushrooms. So you can actually charge your mushrooms for about 15 minutes in the sun. So cool. So cool. And especially if you've just if you can have a crop of mushrooms and you've just picked them. Oh, so good. Mushrooms are insane. I would love to just do a whole episode just on mushrooms.
Totally.
The great fungi. So you can get it from dairy milk and fortified non-dairy milk, fortified cereals, cod liver oil, tuna, salmon, egg yolks, and it's produced by the body when exposed to sunlight. So that's a huge one, and it's especially huge for your mood. So when it comes to exposing your body to sunlight to help boost it's the serotonin production in your brain. In your gut and brain. That would be my first go-to if someone's ever struggling with feeling down during the day or low mood. It would be try and expose yourself to sunlight. It also that production does help you with circadian rhythm, especially if you can get natural sunlight in the morning and then also watching the sun go down in the afternoon. Vitamin D, love it. And it's very much it's in these foods that we've just suggested and mentioned, but the best way that you can get it is through sunlight.
Absolutely.
Really,
That's
really
something
cool.
to definitely note in terms of those sort of things. And, I suppose in the days where, it is overcast and stuff like that, that's when you could look to do supplementation in that aspect, or, obviously always trying to obtain it from your foods as well, which is something that's really important. And some little fun facts, two things about vitamin D with the mushrooms about charging them in the sun. Now, obviously, if you can't grow your own mushroom crop, what you can do, there's two options what you can do. One is if you buy mushrooms from the supermarket, you can just put them outside for 15 minutes in the container, or there's actually vitamin D infused mushrooms you can buy as well from Coles and Woolies. They're a bit more expensive, but you can buy those. And I suppose in terms of the sunlight thing, how much sunlight is too much sunlight? Well, the minimum amount is around, as long as you're aiming for about 15 to 30 minutes a day, that should provide enough at either, the early mid-morning or in the afternoons in terms of the vitamin D to provide enough to your body as well. But like you said, it's such a mood booster. Anytime that I'm feeling a bit flat or if I've been inside all day, I go out and get some sunshine and it's beautiful. So complement that with a nice diet and you're getting it all around. Lots of big vitamin D,
Exactly. And that's, if anyone's listening to this and you're a shift worker or a night shift, 100% be supplementing with vitamin D. It's definitely necessary for your health and immunity as well as mood. So awesome. Thank you. I'll leave you to the next one.
The next one is vitamin E. So vitamin E's function within the body is preventing damage to our cell membranes, our cellular structure, and then also protects vitamin A in terms of within the body, and then also aids in blood production. So within this, it plays a vital role in those sort of roles within the body and those metabolic functions. And the food sources and where you can get vitamin E from is seeds and nuts and vegetable oils as well. So within that, there's a few sources there, but mainly from your seeds and your nuts as well. Anything else that you'd like to add to
that? No, that's you've pretty much covered everything. Very vitamin E is, again, it's not hugely in our food, and again you're going to see it in heaps of different skin products and beauty ranges and things like that too, just because of the effects that it does have on rebuilding cellular structure. Absolutely.
Moving to our next vitamin, Demi, take it away.
Vitamin K. Okay, so this aids in blood clotting. So it also plays an important role in the metabolism of calcium. So it can be very, very important for healthy bones and also cardiovascular health. So it does help, like you said, plays an important role in blood clotting, but it can also be important in removing sort of the buildup of calcium in the arteries. So food sources that you can find this in is leafy green and green veg. And then so things like your broccoli, your spinach, carrot, cabbage, asparagus, Brussels sprouts, all that sort of stuff. And it's produced by bacteria in the large intestine as well. So it's worth noting that the vitamins that we just went through there, A, D, E, and K, are all fat soluble vitamins. So they need fats to be adequately absorbed. So either consuming them with fats, a fat source, is ideal, or supplementing with and ensuring when you're supplementing with these, you're actually consuming something like a cod oil or a fish oil, or vitamin D you'll often find in oil capsules. So making sure that you're actually considering that when you are going to supplement them.
Absolutely. That's really important. And I suppose speaking in terms of how the other, vitamins, what we were speaking about before, in terms of the B vitamins, and then also the whole group. So, the vitamin B1, B2, B6, B12, vitamin C, those sort of things. They are actually water soluble vitamins. So they actually require water to be transported around the body as well. So we've got our fat soluble vitamins and then our water soluble vitamins. So in terms of that food quality, what we were speaking about in the previous episode is that for you to be able to also obtain these sort of things from your diet, you also require good hydration and a good amount of fat in your diet. Fat is not meant to be feared. So, we got your good fats, which we could do an episode another day on, like the monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats and whatnot as well, which we'll touch on slightly today, later through the things that we go through. But in terms of that, it's just really important that, to absorb all of these and get them to maximize it and having it going around your body, you need to ensure you've got good fats and good amount of water. So don't skimp on those things.
Yeah, totally. 100%. So if we're going through sort of like why micronutrients is important, we should probably do an episode on why hydration is important. It seems to be one of the biggest things that clients don't sort of like necessarily know or recognize as important to them. Yeah, I literally, you're like talking about it and I'm drinking my water like, oh, someone thirsty. Yeah, and I ran a group coaching call on Monday, and basically pretty much two of my clients in there were like, yeah, my biggest downfall is my water consumption, and then just taking them through some basic ways to increase their water. And they were like, I never thought of that. To me, it seems a bit crazy because I'm like, you never thought of having a glass of water when you first wake up? Like, aren't you thirsty when you first get up? But it's so important for all the bodily functions and what we need. So yes, as we were going through our vitamins and minerals, the next one brings us to calcium. So this is everyone knows about calcium. Okay, so the function of calcium is it maintains your healthy teeth and bones, helps blood clots, helps the nerves and muscle functions. The food sources that we can get them in, so this is quite well known, is dairy milk and fortified non-dairy milks, dark green vegetables, sardines, clams, oysters, legumes, and almonds, which is probably an unsuspected food source that you can get calcium in, which I find quite interesting. But yeah, so calcium is a pretty important micronutrient. And yeah, we definitely want to make sure you get enough calcium. Calcium's interesting though, because like, as we've mentioned before, we do want other vitamins and minerals to help us absorb calcium, utilize calcium, and prevent an excess of calcium.
Yep, absolutely. And that's something that's really, really important to note. Moving into our next one, we've got potassium. So this function of potassium helps us regulate water balance in our cells. It helps our nerves function as well, and important for heart rhythm too. So that's something that's really, really important to note in terms of that. We can obtain potassium from oranges, bananas, cereals, potatoes, and dried beans. So within this, we want to ensure that, we are regulating a nice water balance within our cells throughout our body. So you'll notice that, if you're lacking in potassium and also lacking in water, you'll be definitely feeling it. But it does regulate that throughout our body, and also the way our nerves fire and wire in that aspect too. So that's something that's really important. Moving into our next one, we have
sodium. So sodium and potassium kind of go hand in hand as well with the regulation of water balance. And it does also stimulate your nerves too. So it's also like quite important for recovery as well. So what I find is that if I have a client who typically eats quote unquote clean foods, they might be like they might tend to be a little bit lower in sodium. So that's when I would have a client, because usually people, and I speak to people about this all the time, and they're like, oh, isn't salt bad for you? And I'm like, well, no, because we actually need salt to utilize carbohydrates specifically for workouts. So salt and water actually act as an assistant in drawing the carbohydrate inside the cell so that we can use it for energy production. And it also promotes recovery in that way as well. So if you're not getting enough sodium, potentially your recovery might be affected, especially for people that are in endurance sports and things like that. The electrolyte regulation and electrolyte balance is even more important. So if you're someone that doesn't eat a lot of processed foods, you typically like to think of your nutrition as quote unquote clean, you don't use sauces or anything like that, then adding a couple of cracks of salt to your food is going to be beneficial. So foods you can find it in, almost everything, especially processed foods. I think that's the link of why people think that salt is bad for you, because you find high amounts of sodium in processed foods. So it's not necessarily the sodium as such, is actually the fact that the food that you're consuming it in typically is very high in calories, very low in nutritional density, and processed foods, trans-saturated fats, all of that stuff is actually linked to cardiovascular disease, not as much the sodium itself. So is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, so within that, like anything, I suppose too much of anything can be detrimental in that aspect. And sometimes if you have too much sodium, that can affect your blood pressure as well in that aspect too. So I suppose in terms of that, all of those things, within that we need sodium, especially when we're doing sports and whatnot as well. That's something that's really, really important. But, like you were saying, the food quality, all those sort of things over time can lead to detrimental effects. So it's just something to be mindful of in that aspect. But no, other than that, perfect summary. I'm looking for it.
I would say watch out for processed foods that are super high in sodium. And then if you're going to consume those, for example, if I'm going to have a meal that might be Asian food is very high in sodium. Think about soy sauce, and that's basically just sodium. Sriracha, basically just sodium. All of those things, again, because they regulate water balance, if you shoot your sodium or your salt intake really high one day, you may experience a water fluctuation on the scales the next day too, right? So it's a really important thing to note. So it's not necessarily bad for you. It's just doing its job, right? It's doing its job to retain water within the body.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's really, really important. All right. So moving into our next one, we've got iron. So iron seems to be one of the biggest deficiencies that I encounter with clients. But the function of iron, what does it do? So it's a mineral in the body that is needed for growth and development. So our body actually uses iron to make hemoglobin, a protein in red blood cells that carries oxygen from our lungs to all parts of the body. So that's something that's really important, because it also creates myoglobin, which is a protein that provides oxygen to the muscles. So we do need iron to make some hormones too, but it's really, really important in the fact that, when we speak to iron and whatnot, like we know, and I'm sure you've encountered with a lot of clients, it seems to be one of those massive deficiencies that we do have, and a lot of, iron infusions and all not as well. But the beautiful thing is that we're going to discuss, one, how we can get maximum iron absorption after we go through the rest of these. But number two as well is that, in terms of where you can actually get these from your diet is, dark green vegetables, whole grain cereals, whole grains such as brown rice and quinoa or quinoa, legumes, lentils, nuts, seeds, dried fruits, and animal proteins. So such as, for example, like your red meats, your lambs, your beefs, even in the fact that you can get it from, your chickens, dark, all those sort of things, right?
Yeah.
In terms of that, we can obtain so much of it from our diet. So within that, if you are low in iron, whilst we're not medical professionals in that aspect, like GPs and whatnot, you could look at, when we speak in terms of the nutritional perspective, what are you eating in your diet? Are you obtaining iron-rich foods within your diet? And that's something to look at, and also sort of just sit back and zoom out and go, cool. You'll start to notice this within, I personally have not experienced low iron myself, but with the clients that I have worked with, a lot of the times the symptoms can be quite fatigued, low, exhausted, muscles aren't firing the way they should be. It's kind of slowing down. Everything's really hard. And, have you ever experienced low iron, Demi?
Not that I know of, but I am going to go get tested for it very soon. So definitely symptoms like cold hands and feet, pale skin, weakness as well. And like you mentioned, extreme fatigue. And it just, something that's really interesting to me is that iron is actually found in a wide variety of foods. So I think sometimes from what I've seen with clients is that it's not necessarily that they're not consuming the foods that hold iron, it's that they're not actually, the body's not absorbing it for some reason, which is an even more complex thing to try and figure out, because you're like, well, that could be for like a million different reasons as to why your body's not actually absorbing or uptaking this iron. So but it is usually one of the first places that I would look if a client is struggling with fatigue or low energy levels quite regularly. And these are all just like, see, these foods that you would probably increase to increase your iron consumption, they're all just whole foods. They're all just more micronutrient dense foods. So if you're feeling like shit, or if you've got little to no energy, it makes sense that you would clean up your diet and include some of these foods. And as a natural byproduct of that, hopefully you will get more iron. So it's a really low hanging fruit, and it is such a vital mineral for your body to utilize for optimal health. So when we talk about the role of iron, it's so important. But I was also talking to someone, a nutritional therapist, about iron not long ago, and she said that iron and zinc also compete for absorption within the body too. So that brings us to obviously zinc. We'll chat about zinc, and then after we go through a couple more, we'll go through like the food pairings and things like that to kind of like optimize the absorption of these two minerals. Because again, they're both so important for us. So the function of zinc is obviously it aids in the transport of carbon dioxide. It also aids in healing wounds. It forms enzymes within the body, supports healthy hair, skin, and nails. Zinc deficiencies can be characterized by a decrease in immune function, and also like bruising and bleeding easily and stuff like that too. So the food sources that you can find zinc in is whole grains, dairy milk, fortified and non-fortified dairy milks, and legumes too. So zinc is a very important micronutrient as well. Alongside iron, I definitely do want to sort of like, I'm excited to sort of go through the pairings of food for zinc and iron, just so that we can make sure that you're actually like, or people that are listening to this can be conscious of that. And if you're someone that has typically struggled with low iron or low zinc levels, hopefully this will be helpful for you and you'll notice a difference.
Yeah, awesome. Good summary on that, which we're very excited to take you guys through that. And this will be our last one that we're discussing for today before we get into the questions, is omega-3s and omega-6s. So these are things that are essential for our overall health. So in terms of the function, it aids in our cellular function, aids in our brain health, cardiovascular health, hormone regulation, all these sort of things. It can also aid in our mood as well. Now, where can you get omega-3s and omega-6s from? So for example, a lot of the times, I suppose, in the Western diet, so within our diets, we get a lot of omega-6s, but omega-3s are, we need a good ratio of omega-3s to omega-6s for essential overall health. So, to obtain the benefits of, good cellular function, good brain health, good cardiovascular health and whatnot, we do require those omega-3s within our diet as well. So these are things that can't be synthesized within the body.
Yeah,
the things that we get from our diet. So things such as like our fatty fish, like salmon. I love crispy salmon. I live for it. Mackerel, like anchovies, sardines, and trout. So pretty much any like sort of oily, fatty fish, you can obtain those from. Also tunas and stuff too do have it. And also, what else was there? I was thinking, no, I already said sardines. Sorry. Sorry, I was like, sardines. I had those the other day. And then also eggs as well. So I know that there's a little note there, including omega-3 enriched. So I haven't actually come across those before, but within that, it's that's something that you can also get. Yeah. Flax seeds and flaxseed oil, and also other foods as well. Demi, anything you'd like to add to that?
You already went through walnuts and soybeans and tofu and everything like that. So no, soybeans, tofu, canola oil, some margarines, juices, and yogurts. I would be hesitant to be like recommending your margarines and stuff like that, because they're obviously filled with a bunch of other stuff that's not really beneficial for your health. Juices and yogurts as well. So like I would always try and favor the whole foods in their natural form rather than the fortified, because you're never going to be getting it from its most natural source.
Yep.
But yeah, so definitely looking at things like your nuts and then also your meat-based protein and fat sources as well. So that's where sort of like your soybeans and tofu come in.
Beautiful. Awesome summary. We hope you enjoyed those. Hopefully you got some little golden nuggets from that. But now we're going to move into our questions. So I believe, Demi, you got a couple of questions from some of your clients, which is amazing. So for those who listen back to our episodes ever, more than welcome to send through questions if you want us to answer it, right? That's what we're here for. So we've got 2 questions from your clients. If you'd like to take those away. I know I've got them here somewhere.
Yeah, awesome. So there was also one that I missed. So I was just quickly pulling that back up on my phone. But hidden veggie gems. So Amelia actually asked, what foods are surprisingly high in minerals and vitamins? So I went through and mentioned kiwi fruits before. They're actually very high in vitamin C. Edamame is very high in, or is actually surprisingly high in protein. And Brazil nuts are high in selenium. So in like 2 Brazil nuts, you can pretty much get your daily recommended needs for selenium. And it's important not to actually consume too many Brazil nuts because you can have too much selenium. So that would be like my first thoughts around foods that are surprisingly high in sort of like some vitamins and minerals. Do you have any to add?
No, I've got nothing to add to that. It's a good summary.
Yeah, cool. They were just the ones that I could think of sort of like off the top of my head. But I'm sure there would be so much more if we did a little bit more research on that topic. The next question was, what foods should we eat or not eat together for better absorption, which we'll go through very shortly. Then the last question that she had was something that she wanted to know when she was starting out was, are all protein sources equal? So very cool one, very cool question. My answer would be, in short, no, they're not. Not all protein sources are equal. You've got a wide variety of different proteins and amino acids, and not all of them are within one source of food. Eggs are a complete source of protein, but we're looking at, for those of you that don't know, the egg white is the protein and the yolk is your fat source. So anything else you want to add with regards to protein, and are all protein sources equal?
No, but you're definitely right. They are not all created equal. And that's something that's of importance as well, is that, you know, we do require essential amino acids that cannot be synthesized within the body. So we must obtain them from the diet. And a lot of them we can get from animal proteins, but there is also vegetarian sources that have incomplete proteins that we compare them with. So I think it's worth doing a whole episode on that, in terms of, you know, how can you get your protein sources and get that complete amino acid profile, so that way you can actually, I suppose, use it within the body, and understanding why, if it is incomplete, where it can be detrimental, and there'll be breakdowns within how, I suppose, body proteins are created within the body from our dietary proteins. So essentially, all in all, the summary is they're not all created equally, but at the same time, I think that's worth an episode. I live for that. That's awesome.
I 100% do. To give everyone like a little bit of sort of like rule of thumb to follow, is your animal proteins are going to be providing you with a wider amino acid profile than your vegetarian sources. And I'd have to look into it a little bit more to find out whether it's actually legitimate or not. But the understanding at the moment is that from your plant sources of protein, they're not as bioavailable for you. The amino acid profile in your plants, not as bioavailable for you as like your meats. So that's an interesting thing to note as well, especially for like vegetarians, vegans out there listening to this. Your go eat a steak. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. Your meat-based or animal products are going to be the higher amino acid profile, or more like a wider variety of amino acids. But yeah, cool topic for a poddy in future.
Absolutely. Which moves us into our question then around, you know, we're going to speak about nutrient absorption, you know, through this, and we're going to go through a couple of examples of what you can do. And I just want to reiterate before we go through this, you know, at the same time, with all this information, that doesn't mean go and change everything at once. pick one thing, cool, focus on that. If you understand, if you've gotten some blood tests or anything and you've sort of noticed some or you've noticed some changes within your body and whatnot, you can start to look at the food quality of your diet and start with one thing at a time and change little things to work on that. You don't need to change everything at once, but within these sort of things of nutrient absorption, so these are things that can promote more absorption within the body. So this is obviously dependent on every single person. Everyone's got a different profile in terms of how their body does do things. And, there could be there's honestly so many functions that happen within the body at every single second of every single day. Everyone's going to be different. But overall, these are the summary of, the pairings that you can use to absorb, each nutrient. So we'll start off with folic acid and also B vitamins. So B vitamins work at their prime when in synergy rather than as an isolated nutrient. So a combination of both folic acid and vitamin B12 are essential to form healthy red blood cells. So folic acid also works well when combined with B6 and B12 for the maintenance of normal blood homeocysteine levels as well. So within this, if we have in terms of perfect pairings and whatnot, we can speak to eggs, so vitamin B12, and spinach. So you can have that for breakfast. So spinach has folic acid, eggs has vitamin B12, or you can have beef, such as vitamin B6 and B12, and also lentils. So that's a folic acid. So that's something that you can do in terms of pairings for folic acid and also the B vitamins. Is there anything else you'd like to add to that pairing?
No, that's awesome. I love the perfect pairing because it just means that our listeners can take away some really good tools as to what they can pretty much implement straight away and start seeing some benefits, or even just feel like they're paying a little more attention to what they're actually consuming. So the next sort of like vitamin and mineral pairing is vitamin C and iron. So vitamin C can enhance the absorption of iron from plant-based food sources. This is a handy fact. The handy fact is that that it's perfect for vegetarians and vegans, for which iron deficiency is common. Okay, so typical symptoms of iron deficiency we've already gone through, so things like tiredness, lack of energy, pale skin. And the perfect pairings is lentils, which can be your iron source, lemon juice dressing, which is your vitamin C, and then you can go, another pairing would be beans, which is your iron source, and then capsicum, which is your vitamin C as well, which is fun.
Awesome.
Cool.
Very awesome. You can just think, with those things, you can make a beautiful salad or something like that. So like a lentil salad or, something like that, or a beans and capsicum omelette or something. I don't know.
You know what? I actually do quickly. I'm just going to quickly Google something because I really want to know, and you probably already know this. Oh, see, your bean salad that you do with like beans, tuna, gherkins are vitamin C. So you got beans and gherkins.
I'm just a vitamin C walking shell. I'm a vessel for vitamin C.
I think it's like people probably listen to that food combo and they're like, what the hell? Beans and gherkins. Really?
You got to try
it. Love it. You got to try it. Beans, tuna, gherkins, a little bit of feta, a little bit of red onion. Oh, okay, stop. Okay, I'm hungry. It's not even 8 o'clock in the morning and I'm already hungry again after breakfast.
I love that. So moving into our next, absorption and, pairings and whatnot. So we were speaking before about vitamins A, D, E, and K, and also fats. So as we said before, they are fat soluble. So for us to be able to utilize the vitamins A, D, E, and K within the body, we actually do require, some fats within the body as well. So that way we can actually absorb them, because without adequate fats, good fats within our diet, what can actually happen is, a lack of absorption within our body. And, in terms of this, we can actually focus on pairing them with foods to promote this positive environment. So perfect pairings in terms of vitamin A, D, E, and K and fats is something you could do, such as like carrots, which is vitamin A, and then olive oil hummus or something like that. Yeah. That can be your fats. Or you could try kale, which is vitamin A and K, with an avocado dressing, which is a fat. So avocado is a healthy fat. And then within that, so it's essentially always coming back whole foods that are micronutrient dense. So that's something that's really important. Awesome. Moving into our next one.
All right. So we are looking at omega-3 and vitamin D. So vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin, as we've already discussed, and therefore consumption alongside fats is automatically going to increase this nutrient absorption. So specifically, vitamin D and omega-3 could work together to improve your cognitive function and mood. Okay, so perfect pairing would be scrambled eggs, a good source of vitamin D, and chia seeds. So that would be your omega-3s. Or salmon fillet, which is your vitamin D and omegas with brown rice. So that's a couple of perfect pairings. I think that pairing is like kind of endless as long as you've got some protein, like some animal products and some protein sources.
Absolutely. Very easy to do, something that you can also like rotate throughout your days as well. So you can have variety as well.
Mm-hmm.
Moving into our next perfect pairing is calcium and vitamin D. So when we think about calcium, did you actually know that vitamin D is critical for the absorption of calcium from the gut? So having these both paired together can actually help in terms of absorbing the calcium and then also using the benefits of vitamin D as well for optimal bone density. So, for example, like bone breakages and whatnot as well. Have a look if you're having enough calcium and vitamin D within your diet. Mm-hmm. So perfect pairings are salmon, so vitamin D with some kale, so something like that because kale has calcium, or you can have an omelette, so it has to be whole egg omelette, so having the full egg in there with vitamin D, with like wilted greens or leafy green vegetables, so that's like your calcium as well. So there's some good pairings too.
Yeah, awesome. And there's one that we haven't really touched on, which is probably be the last one that we go through, which is black pepper and turmeric. So curcumin is an active component in turmeric, which has an anti-inflammatory properties and is thought to play a positive role with conditions such as arthritis, cardiovascular disease, and Alzheimer's. So black pepper increases the absorption and potency of curcumin. So the pairings is things like turmeric latte with black pepper, or red lentil, turmeric, curcumin, and black pepper soup. So pretty much adding black pepper to any kind of, I want to say curry, but it's like, how you've got your Indian spice, or like your curry spice mix. And then even if you were to have something like a turmeric latte, or adding in some curcumin or turmeric to smoothies and even your oats, they're really good ideas as well.
Beautiful. There's some awesome. We hopefully got some fun facts from this. And, in terms of like, how can you get these sort of things within your diet? You're probably thinking, do I have to eat everything in one day? So no, you don't have to do that, but you must everything. And, in terms of that, what you could essentially look at is rotating foods throughout the week. So something that I do and something I recommend for my clients is, cook. Well, personally with shopping, I pick one color of each vegetable. So I get a little variety and I feel what's good. I love a rainbow. I love a colorful rainbow with my food. It's like aesthetically pleasing for my eyes as well. My brain goes happy. But it's also literally like it's good. And I always aim to, like, a good tip for yourself in terms of like, if you're listening into this, is that, if you want to try and have those rotations, is have, a couple of different protein sources available, have a couple of different fat sources available, and have a couple of different vegetable and also grain sources available. So for example, I might have like broccoli or broccolini and capsicum and, cabbage one day for a couple of days, and then I'll change the vegetables to something else. That way I can get, the essential vitamins and whatnot coming in from my diet, but I usually have the staples and they're always going to be whole foods. Is there any other tips you want to add to that for our wonderful listeners that are listening in?
Yeah, I would say that everything that you're like sort of mentioning with regards to like not needing to eat it all in one day, and how to sort of space it out over the week, and how to sort of do your food shop and prep for getting a wide variety of micronutrients in your diet. The other thing that I'll also just sort of touch on for those people that might not necessarily be very organized with their food, or don't necessarily haven't really nailed like meal prep and understanding of what calories are and macros are. If you're trying to also meet sort of like macronutrient needs as well, what we want to do is like you said, pick what I would recommend is like picking consistent protein sources, so that not a lot about your meals are actually changing as such. It's just that so you might have potatoes and chicken with lunch, and then you're just changing the vegetable variety that you're getting, or you're changing the fat variety and the vegetable. And then you might have beef and rice with dinner, but you're changing the micronutrient profile if you're having that as a curry with a wide variety of vegetables in it and potatoes and stuff like that. So I would say stay consistent with at least one or two of the variables of your food. You're either going to stay consistent with like your carb sources, like your rice, potato, sweet potato, pasta, whatever it is. And then you're going to just make small adjustments for things like your protein sources and your vegetables. Or you're going to do the opposite, where you're going to stay consistent with the protein sources and make sure that throughout the day, you don't just consume, like, one thing that I've seen very frequently in food diaries of new clients is just chicken every single day, all day. And it's like, get a variety of foods in. If you can get eggs in, great. They're not always a convenient food for people because you have to cook them and all that sort of stuff. But things like, meal prepping, like a roast, and then having that as a couple of different lunches throughout the day. And then like having chicken for lunch, steak for dinner, or chicken for lunch, salmon for dinner, or whatever it is. And then you're just changing the minerals and the vitamins in the veg, because you're changing the veg variety from lunch versus dinner. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does. Yeah, it does in terms of that, because the variety is definitely key, not just for the fact of one, enjoyment, but also for nutrients and whatnot as well.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Should we go through the fun facts that we sort of put together for today? I love doing a little bit of a fun fact, and this one just sort of came to me naturally whilst I was like looking at B vitamins. I sort of went down a bit of a rabbit hole because I was like, I wonder why they do, like, the B vitamins are classified as like B like B1, B2, B, and so on. And then I sort of started to like learn a little bit about it, and the B vitamins weren't all classified as B vitamins originally. They were just discovered as like their name. So like thiamine was thiamine and all that sort of stuff. But then they started to realize and started to learn that they were actually all like of similar structure. So then they started to classify them all as B vitamins. And it was originally thought that they got put into their numbers in order of when they were discovered, but it's actually not correct, because B vitamin B12 was discovered before B6. But then, so what's actually happened is they've named them B vitamins as a collective, and then they've started in numerical order from when they actually discovered that they were a B vitamin. So essentially at first I'm just going to scroll back up so I don't butcher this explanation. First thing they obviously discovered thiamine and obviously pyridoxine and riboflavin as like all their own individual vitamins. And then they realized that they're all sort of a B vitamin structure. So then they started naming them as B1, B2, and so on. So they discovered thiamine was a B vitamin first, so they named thiamine B1. Then they discovered riboflavin was another B vitamin, so then that got labeled as B2. So that's like the correlation between the numerical order of the B vitamins and also what they're called. So I thought that was pretty cool.
That is really cool. And it's something I didn't know. So that's the coolest thing, is like learning these little fun facts. It helps us learn little things as well, which is awesome. I think that was really cool.
I'm always just like, but why? Why did they name them like that? Because I'm like, is that meant to be more confusing, or is it meant to make it easier to understand? And then so that's apparently why.
I love that. Well, my fun fact isn't super fun today, but I was just having a little look then in terms of, speaking in the vitamin B group to try and keep it alongside of those sort of things. But garlic actually has 0.2 grams of protein, and then also 2% of your vitamin B6 for the day in just one clove of garlic. So if you can eat garlic, you can add that in, a little bit of your vitamin B6 intake for the day. And within that's my little fun fact for this week as well. But thank you guys so much for listening into this episode. We hope you found some really good nuggets in this. And, if you have written anything down, or if you found anything that's super useful, don't forget to take a screenshot, tag us in it. We'll put our little socials below in our description as well. But we absolutely love the fact that you're listening in, and thank you so much for the support. Let us know any topics that you would like to hear next, but we'll see you for our next episode.